So the Northern Waterfront basically looked at industry clusters. What were the various industry clusters that had potential for growth? Not looking back, but looking forward. And we're taking a pre-COVID sort of viewpoint, looking through that lens. And they identified 5 industry clusters based upon economic data that the Craft Consulting had pulled together from a variety of sources. Those being advanced manufacturing, biomedical, biotech, agri-science and specialty food products, transportation technology, and clean tech. And what you'll see is that these industry sectors probably mirror some of the target industry sectors that other communities like Walnut Creek and others throughout Contra Costa County and the East Bay are targeting, because in fact, we happen to have competitive advantage in these industry clusters. So how can we retain, grow, and attract new businesses and create that employment opportunity? That's the basis of the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Initiative. Next slide, please. So on coming on board, I think it was July of 2021, came on board. The Biden-Harris administration had been actively engaged in turning the corner on some economic development and workforce development initiatives. And some of that is encapsulated in the Economic Development Administration's American Rescue Plan. And what you see in front of you is 2, 4, 6. There's 6 federal grant opportunities, and it was determined after meeting with the jurisdictions along the Northern Waterfront and our community partners such as East Bay Leadership Council and others that there was an opportunity for the county to step up and bring all that information together in a regional grant application. So along with our partners, we put forward a Build Back Better Regional Challenge grant, which is the basis of what we're talking about here. But I've got some good news and I got some bad news to talk about. So anyway, this grant application was put together in over a month with the help of a variety of jurisdictions. It's based upon an industry cluster analysis, which we had already done. So it was perfectly lined up and perfect timing for the Northern Waterfront Strategic Group to put this forward in a regional context. And so the Build Back Better Regional Challenge is a 2-phase national grant competition. The first phase was submitted in October. A decision had been made last week. I believe it was middle to late last week with regards to who the phase 1 winners are and who moves on to the phase 2. And I'll get to that information in just momentarily. Lindy, can we have the next slide, please? So without belaboring the point, Build Back Better Regional Challenge is focused on economically distressed communities and looking through the lens of regional economic and industry growth clusters, which made this opportunity, the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Opportunity, a really good potential grant applicant awardee. Next slide, please. Oh, and this PowerPoint presentation can be distributed. It's not embargoed. Feel free to distribute it to anyone who may be interested in it. As I stated, it is a 2-phased grant application. The first phase, it was awarding 50 to 60 regional grants across the United States. And I believe the application was 529 applicants submitted nationwide out of the 50 U.S. States and territories. So there were 529 applications. Ours was one of them. In California, there were 36 applications. So, and at the end of last week, out of those, there were 4 applications that were awarded here in California. Let me hold off on telling you who the awardees were. But next slide, please. So this slide is a little bit tricky. This is basically on your bottom right-hand side. You'll see the jurisdictional representation there. On the upper right-hand side, you'll see what is traditionally termed the Northern Waterfront area. We do like to blend Richmond into that every once in a while. And over on your left-hand side, is the formula for success. Now those hieroglyphics there, Okay, nobody laughed at my joke. I got a smile from Lynn. Thank you. I got a smile from Lynn. I saw that. And Elaine. Uh, you're looking at government dollars plus industry sector. So those little icons represent the different industries equals economic growth. That was the idea behind that representation for the Build Back Better, our application for the first round of funding. Next slide, please. So again, we talk about industry sectors. We talked about advanced transportation. We talked about biosciences, and we talked about advanced manufacturing, as well as 2 other industry sectors. But for the Build Back Better Regional Grant Challenge, what we did was we went into the Northern Waterfront Action Plan, and we identified those projects that our jurisdictional partners had already stated that they wanted to see move forward, that were close to potential implementation, or had funding attached, or had some sort of a financial oomph behind it. And we're looking at advanced manufacturing. We were looking at the biosciences cluster, advanced transportation cluster, and the Northern Waterfront identity and lead generation. Now, what does that mean? Next slide, please. Oh, let's go back to that slide, and I'll verbally give you the understanding. So for the advanced manufacturing element, that the action item 1.1.1, 3.1.3, that's economic speak, economic development speak. We basically, in economic development, we tie all of our projects, all of our actions to an evidence-based informed economic development strategy. So if anybody ever wants to know, well, why did you do that? Well, right there, because action 1.1.1, which was approved by blah, 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 stated that this is what we want to do. Within the advanced manufacturing cluster, what we were looking to do is we want to purchase up-to-date business and industry data. So, you know how data informs. What we're looking for is Moody's or Dun & Bradstreet or Bureau van Dijk, what we call targeting data. It's basically to allow us to be able to identify businesses within industry sectors that are in a growth mode, and be able to utilize that and provide that information to our jurisdictional partners so that they can match sites to potential opportunities. The next one was a biosciences cluster. So we asked for a certain amount of money to conduct a market research and economic feasibility study for establishing a bioscience incubator on some county-owned land in the city of Hercules, right adjacent to Biorad. So there have been ongoing discussions, as my understanding, with Biorad in the city of Hercules and others about taking this disused, vacant piece of parcel of county-owned land and actually activating a building and a facility that would then be able to house and work with some of the bioscience cluster entities around the Bay Area to actually foster some incubator economic growth. Next one was the advanced transportation technology cluster. So I don't know. I think pretty much everybody's aware of Gomentum Station, Concord Naval Weapons Station, the 2 airports within the Contra Costa County airport system at Buchanan and in Byron. Well, Gomentum Station and what the airport system is called Bay Area testing sites for drones. Those are projects and initiatives that are very advanced. We happen to have users that are utilizing these facilities. And they're paying rent. They're actually users in those industries that are paying rent, that are actually looking at growing on those facilities. Unfortunately, what we don't have is lockable office space or garages or warehousing. We don't have broadband infrastructure on some of this facility. We lack maybe some signage and or other infrastructure that would be able to expand some of those operations. So we wanted to look at how do we grow those sites so they can receive more businesses coming in. And lastly, Northern Waterfront identity and lead generation. Part of that's marketing and sales, but part of it's also packaging what we already have in the jurisdictions, sites, packaging it in such a way and then marketing it to specific businesses in industry sectors that are growing. And a lot of this goes back to knowing which industries are growing, which businesses are growing. And that's based a lot on industry analysis and those Dun and Bradstreet and those Bureau van Beek or Moody's databases that in economic development is part of your basic blocking and tackling toolkit. So if we could then access and or provide that information to our jurisdictional partners, it helps them be much more efficient and forward leaning. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to take away from this is that while we did not receive the Build Back Better Regional Challenge Phase 1 grant award, there were 4 applicants that received it here in California. Alameda County Waste Management, our neighbor just over to the southwest, Central Valley Community Foundation, the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, and the Palo Band of Mission Indians. Those were the 4 applicants who received federal funding to move their regional economic development projects forward. Well, while we did not receive that funding, what we did get is a recommitment from the jurisdictions that the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Strategy is valid. It remains operational, and that the cities are committed to their projects within that framework, and they wanted to move forward. The second aspect to this is that we received 41 letters of support from not only jurisdictions, elected officials, but organizations from across the board, from East Bay Leadership Council to Richmond Community Foundation. And I think I saw in here Betty from Spark Point. I think we'd reached out to Spark Point as well. I believe we received either a letter of support or it was a yes, you're on board, but didn't have the time to get that letter of support. The idea being is that what we got here was a reaffirmation, a commitment, and the understanding that we can't continue to do economic development the way we've always done it. We have to think of equity, we have to think of communities, and we have to think outside of the box about how do we overcome some of our negative aspects, the ABC, anywhere but California, and be able to pull in those types of industries that have a viable future, like wind turbines. Don't get me started talking about wind turbines, but I love wind turbine manufacturing. Looking at drones, looking at autonomous vehicles. Let's play to our strength and our proximity to San Francisco, the Bay Area, and Silicon Valley. And so the momentum is there. We're currently working on our 2022 work plan. We're looking at working with our partners, and I'm really excited that this opportunity to connect with my colleagues in Walnut Creek and to hear some of the wonderful things they're doing and what others on the webinar today are looking at. And I do want to recognize my colleague Jody London, who just joined. Jody is our Jody, what is your title? I want to call you the
sustainability coordinator for the county.
She's a sustainability guru, and Jody sits a little bit further away from. We're a little bit further away. However, we are constantly discussing what sort of new opportunities does Contra Costa County and our jurisdictional partners have in the area of sustainability. And so Jody's helping to infuse the economic development work plan and some of the target industry sectors for growth. And what you'll see coming out of in 2022 is that there is a confluent or a co-joining, maybe that's a correct word, between the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Initiative and this just transition, this new realization that petroleum-based industries are sort of moving. We're moving away from that towards our future, and so that you're going to see that come out of Contra Costa County staff as well as supervisors in the future. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present and to discuss what the Build Back Better Regional Challenge was all about based upon the Northern Waterfront Economic Development Initiative, and how East Bay Leadership Council, your organizations and yourself can help to inform our work program and how we can support our local jurisdictions.
Thank you, Sam. And I think it was important for us to kind of get that update, because we did talk a bit about these grants and some of the other grants that you mentioned earlier this year in one of our meetings. So I think it was great to kind of follow up and hear how that application went, and to know kind of the results of it. I did put in the chat a little bit of information for those who are interested in Alameda County's Waste Management Authority's application. We'll certainly continue to track that, as it'll certainly be relevant to the region. Did anyone have any questions for Sam?
I was either so thorough or very boring.
Well, Sam, I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing, what are some of the things you all are considering for your 2022 work plan? I mean, where do you see yourselves going in this next year?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Lindy. I really appreciate that. First and foremost, we are here to support our jurisdictions. It's very well understood that most of the development opportunities sit within jurisdictions, and it's those jurisdictions that know the folks that working in a jurisdiction know their communities best. We're here to support. We're here to bring resources. We're here to bring political connectivity or other opportunities. And soon, hopefully, we're here to bring attraction databases and or assistance in finding information or other lead generation opportunities. Bless you. And we're also here to lend a helping hand. We're here to, if let's say Walnut Creek does a business retention expansion initiative or a business walk or something of that nature, we're here to support and take part. We're here not to lead, but we're here to support and help facilitate in areas of incorporated Walnut Creek, and in unincorporated areas, we're here to work with the communities. It's been very well articulated what space we play in.
Okay, well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate you being here. Patience just raised her hand. Patience, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in and say, Sam, I've been with this waterfront project from the beginning, and listening to you, one wouldn't know you haven't always been at the table. You covered it very well, and I'm very excited about the future of this. And definitely COVID did set all of us back in all the great plans we had. So correct me if I missed this. Is there any plan for a presentation? Like we used to have a big event every other year. Is there something coming, and did I miss it?
You did not miss it, and we are discussing something coming. And I appreciate those warm words of encouragement, Patience. Thank you. We are discussing internally what our options are for a gathering, if you will. And COVID is playing that unknown factor. Is it virtual? Is it in person? We're meeting with supervisors in January to determine just kind of what their thoughts are. There are other organizations that are looking at opportunities to have gatherings or webinars or informational opportunities. And rather than just meeting to meet, we're also looking at what projects have we identified working with our local jurisdictions, whether they're in the Northern Waterfront area or countywide, that we might be able to have an impact on, or a positive nature moving forward, that could kind of form that basis of that event. So a lot's to be determined based upon what comes in January. So let's stay tuned. And also, I'm looking, but we have onboarded a fellow staff member, Lee Bender. She's our new economic development project manager, and she's new to DCD here at the county. So the county has made a commitment. They've doubled down in that the county wants to see how can we support not only the northern waterfront, but jurisdictions and or other communities throughout the county. And so Lee's coming to us from, she brings a cross-functional business and finance background with some hands-on instruction and curriculum development for educational and corporate American end users. I believe it was most recently she came out of the Federal Reserve. So there's going to be some interesting things popping up in January. So hopefully I answered your question, Patience. You weren't late.
You
Something's
certainly
coming.
did and more. Thank you.
Yeah.
It sounds like we'll have to have you back sometime in 2022, Sam, if you're not able to join us for all of our meetings, which of course we certainly hope you will. Thanks, Sam. Okay, well, I think we're going to turn it over. And now that we've gotten a little bit of information about what Contra Costa County is thinking and some of the initiatives they're putting their effort and time behind, I wanted to concentrate on a city, and I thought Walnut Creek would be a great one to invite, knowing that they have a very robust business presence in Contra Costa County, but that they've also had to encounter a lot of flexibility and challenges throughout 2020 and 2021. And Elaine was one of the hosts of our recent board meeting and talked a little bit about some of the challenges that have encountered in hospitality and tourism. And I imagine some of the things that Angela and Saba may touch on. So I'm excited to turn it over to both of you. Do you have a presentation, or is there any way that I can be helpful?
No, we're just going to be talking heads, so hopefully we'll
Talking
keep you
heads are
engaged
great.
that way. Lindy and everyone, thank you for having us here and having Walnut Creek on your agenda today. You know, again, I'll take the lead, but I do invite Council Member Darling and Cassava just to jump in, you know, as I'm talking, and so please, you know, I invite them to kind of add on to what I'm saying. So again, thank you. And with that, just to give you a little bit of background, but economic development is a council priority. Council determines, you know, their priorities every 2 years in order to allow for some runway and for programs to be created and implemented, and hopefully to gain some traction. So economic development is high on their list. And as part of that, Walnut Creek has extended its rebound program for outdoor dining and for curbside pickup. And that's through June 30th of 2022. But kind of moving forward on a more permanent basis, we're looking and exploring how the downtown area should look and operate in the future. And we're calling that our Downtown Next initiative. There will be a study session planned for City Council on January 18th. And again, it's to talk about kind of in this new realm, how our downtown should operate. And hopefully you all have had a chance to come downtown to dine outdoors, take advantage of what was the little bit nicer weather before the atmospheric river happened, and I think is supposed to happen later this week. But we have tried to, you know, be able to allow our businesses to operate more and have that curbside pickup, which we're finding is key. But then again, the trade-off is we're losing our metered parking spaces and those kind of convenient parking spaces for folks just to drive up and park in front of their favorite store or restaurant. So again, it's presenting those ideas and hearing back from council kind of what their direction is and how we can move forward. Also, we have 2 studies underway, a study on office and retail. And really, this is going to help us understand kind of what the market has, how the market has changed in those 2 sectors. As you know, we're hearing and probably experiencing amongst this group, this hybrid approach of work, not coming in every day, and some businesses really shrinking their footprint because they don't anticipate like a full-blown workforce to come back in person. So we're trying to understand that, as well as what the retail looks like. And, moving forward, again, what are the demands? And this could possibly lead to zoning changes If there are other uses and maybe other more creative ways to be able to use these underutilized square footage throughout the city. Other things that we are working on, and just, we're growing our ED team in order to put forth some initiatives. And for example, I had mentioned I'm new to the city, and that's the growth in the economic development team. ED is such a full contact sport, so we need the bodies to be able to go out there. And I'll touch a little bit upon this a little bit later in terms of other plans that we have, in terms of business attraction, business retention moving forward. But again, growing the ED team to be able to focus on business attraction, business growth. And really what we're finding is, and we're excited about, is this renewed interest of new businesses coming in or businesses growing. And I know it's kind of on hiatus with the pandemic. People were just kind of struggling to survive. And that was kind of the mode we were in as staff, like, how do we keep our businesses going? And so that they can continue to operate and have employees and really be kind of a thriving part of our community. So, moving forward, we're really excited to be able to, welcome the interest of new businesses in our area. Other things, council has a commitment to safety, obviously, of kind of what you have heard throughout Northern California, throughout the state, these kind of organized retail thefts. And so Walnut Creek City Council is committed to safety. They put $2 million more towards more officers and, more reserve folks out there for public safety. And again, it's so important for our downtown, for the businesses to feel safe, for visitors to feel safe. And so that has been a key part of kind of business development and retaining that kind of feel, inviting people down to the city and kind of in our shopping areas. Also, another kind of big ticket item and commitment is to the mental health training of our officers, but also for the city to be a part of the regional response team to help those who are kind of in those situations of, mental health crises. And really we're seeing and we're hearing that through the pandemic that has really spiked. And unfortunately, it's affecting a lot of people, and, the city is keen to that and knows that is important to address. Other things, enhanced collaboration. And Sam had touched upon this. This is a theme of collaboration and partnership because we kind of all have limited resources, and to be more effective, we are trying to pool our resources together, be in line, and to strengthen kind of the focus and our goals. And so I'm happy to report, enhanced collaboration partnership with the Walnut Creek Chamber of Commerce, Walnut Creek Downtown, and just, being able to rely on one another to really kind of, it's all ships rise with the tide, right? So it's nice that we can all have these overarching goals, for a more vibrant community. And so we're all working towards that. And then touching upon that is kind of the tourism piece. They're going to be launching a campaign called Calapolitan. I have to say that 5 times fast. But again, just it's a marketing campaign, welcoming folks and really kind of being that surprise, reminder for people to shop, dine, stay, travel, and, just enjoy the area. Let's see, other things, a commitment to, focusing on our Shadelands area, taking a look at flexibility in zoning for more creative uses. It's a big portion of our property out there, and we want to continue to make it viable. So that's important for the city. And that also kind of touches upon some of the other collaborations that help fund that. And that would be, our bids, our T bids and our P bids. So all of that, again, the theme of collaboration and partnership to be able to fund that moving forward. And things in 2022, our goals really will be, again, looking at helping businesses grow, attracting businesses. And now we have a few more bodies to be able to do that. But I loved hearing, Sam say if we had a business retention walk, they would come out. I know Bob and the chamber, they would all be all for it, and the staff at WCD. So, really encouraged with kind of bringing the group together and getting us all kind of marching in the same direction for 2022. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions, or, Councilmember Darling or Cassava, if you could add in to my talking head speech. Thank you.
That
You
was
did
wonderful.
a great job. You captured it all.
Yeah, I like the clap, Sam. That's great. Thank you, Angela. Does anyone have any questions? You can go ahead and raise your little hand. I'd be happy to unmute you or call on you.
Lindy, I don't have a question. I have just a remark, and that is, we are all in a really key point here in our quest to regionally create collaboration. Sam talked about it. Angela talked about it. Lindy's mentioned it, and we as a convening body here for Contra Costa County and Alameda County, as far as East Bay leadership is concerned, we ought to be looking for more and more ways of collaborating to help the economy, because that's really what we're all about, right? And I guess the comment that I would want to say is we rise above our competing interests. We're finding areas that we have in common rather than what we have as opposed to each other. So I'm just excited for this kind of participation throughout the region. It's important.
Hear, hear. Absolutely, Bob. Angela, I was just curious, you mentioned that there's some studies that the city of Walnut Creek is conducting. Is there an anticipated point where those studies might be released? Or it seems like it might be great information for us to share. And I'm just wondering if there's kind of a follow-up to that you all might do, or if there's a presentation you might put together, we might be able to have later this year, next year, I should say.
Oh, sure. We would definitely love to be able to.
No problem. I sneezed about 3 times on this call.
Yes, we would love to be able to share the findings of our studies. And again, it's for office and for retail. So those are actually underway. The office one is getting wrapped up. And I suspect that maybe we can have a report to release maybe by the end of January. And then with retail, that's also wrapping up, and hopefully by March. So if you would, like to have us back, or we can just share the studies with the group, we're happy to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. That would be wonderful. Yeah, I mean, perhaps have you come and join us and give us a quick update, somewhat like we did with the Build Back Better grant today. Or even if it's just to distribute it by email, I think that oftentimes folks are very interested in seeing some of the results of those. And we try to be thorough here and making sure we follow up on some of what's talked about. So,
of course,
but
thank you.
Lindy.
Yes.
I was going to say, there's a third study that's going on right now with the Lesher Center on how we bring the Lesher Center back. And that's an important part of the economics of Walnut Creek. And so that's another one. Angela's not involved in it, but a different department's doing that one. And that's another one that's going to help us guide coming out of the pandemic.
Well, that would be another one that would be great to circulate, Cindy. So thank you for bringing that up. And I know that one of the things that have certainly been brought up to us is just thinking about how to make sure that we're considering the arts and trying to find ways for people to continue to be able to gather and convene as an organization that convenes. That's obviously very important to us. But we also recognize that the role that it plays in economic development and community development. So glad to hear that, Cindy, and certainly would look forward to sharing that as well. I appreciate you highlighting that for us. Okay. I'm going to give another second or two just to see if anyone else had a question or comment they wanted to chime in with? If not, I'm going to, oh, go ahead, Sam.
Well, again, thank you very much for the opportunity. Angela, great job. Loved hearing about BRE activities, things of that nature. Let us know how we can be supportive, whether it's, best practices or just, a couple of us joining the effort, whatever. Please let us know how we can support you. The second thing was Lindy or Patience. Can you give us an update on the Good Jobs Challenge, regional Good Jobs Challenge? Got to get these grant acronyms together. Can you give us an update on that application, where that may be?
So Lindy, do you want me to take it?
Go ahead, Patience. I'll happily chime in after.
Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, where we are right now is that we are working with the regional workforce board. San Francisco Office of Economic Development is the lead. We have City of San Jose, Work to Future, NOVA, which covers San Mateo and Santa Clara County, Oakland, Richmond, Alameda, and us. So working with these workforce boards and then bringing in our partners. And of course, we're leaning on CCEP, Lindy and Kristen, to help us with the outreach to healthcare providers. The goal is to get the letters of support for the grant and then have the letters in by the 7th and apply before the deadline, which I believe is the end of January. It's coming very close. So the regional partners selected 5 sectors at this point: advanced manufacturing, healthcare, ICT, logistics, transportation and logistics, and I believe energy. Anyway, so they're going to be looking to, I am not sure about the energy, you can correct me, I don't have the paper in front of me, but I know that we chose 5 sectors to work on. Alameda is heading the advanced manufacturing. Oakland is looking at the transportation and logistics. Contra Costa is going to be heading the healthcare. And the whole idea is that each workforce board would work across the whole area, right? So we're not just going to be doing healthcare employment opportunities and training for Contra Costa. We're going to be covering, healthcare training that would also benefit our partners across. So that's where we are right now. So collecting letters of support, if any of your organizations have relationship with businesses that can give us letters of support, please let Tamia or myself know so that we can try and get the letter to support the application. And then we do have a grant writers, Glen Price group, who is putting the grant together for the whole area. Okay. So that's what I have for now, Lindy. Do you want to?
Thank you, Patience. I think that was a great introduction to kind of where it's sitting and where it's at. For those of you who weren't able to join us at the Opportunity Task Force where we talked about these grant opportunities, the Good Jobs Challenge is an opportunity to build a coalition that is working on creating workforce systems. So there's a lot of partnership that is both required by the grant and that the Workforce Board of Contra Costa County has really helped to develop so that we would be competitive in making this application. So we are, as Patience mentioned, kind of working on trying to get letters of support. I saw James offered one of those, and thank you, James. That is really helpful and greatly appreciated. Primarily at this time, we're concentrating on letters of support from employers in the healthcare sector, because that's really what this grant is looking for, is seeing some commitment to hiring or commitment to the need in the sector. But James, I'll definitely keep that in mind, or Jim, I'll definitely keep that in mind, and we'll certainly reach out to you if there is an opportunity for RFC Connects to be part of that, because we certainly value your presence in the community, and I think it would show support for the Workforce Development Board. But Patience, I think that was wonderful. And for everyone who is interested in learning a little bit more about this grant, I'll be sure to put a link in the chat. Are there any questions about that? Great question, Sam. Okay, well, thank you, Patience. I appreciate you jumping in. We didn't even tell you were going to speak in this meeting, and here you were ready to go.
Hey, we gotta try to be ready at all times. Thank you for helping me with that. I'm sorry, I just assumed everybody knew what it was. So
no, absolutely. Understandable. And since we're talking about grants, it might also be worth mentioning there's some interest here in Contra Costa County in an iHub 2 grant. So that might be something you all hear about in the next few months as well. The East Bay Leadership Council also wrote a letter of support for that. That is a state grant that looks at creating technology-based incubators in underserved communities. There's a great team of folks who've been working on something kind of related to this at DVC, and they're taking the lead on doing a grant application surrounding this. So there's a lot of activity around grants, specifically grants that focus on workforce development right now. And it's really exciting to see people in Contra Costa and Alameda County really taking initiative and jumping into those. And I really appreciate all of you who are part of that go-getter attitude. So before we close, I did want to just share with this group some of the priorities that the East Bay Leadership Council are considering for 2022. As an organization, we always have a large number of priorities and policy issues that we get to work on, something that I think as staff we're really grateful for. We have a lot of expertise at the East Bay Leadership Council in our unpaid volunteers around transportation and water. And those are two issues that we will continue to work on and have always worked on and feel very committed to. But as staff, we wanted to kind of narrow down on where some of our priority time might be best spent in 2022. That's not to say that we're not going to continue to concentrate on all of the issue areas that we consider dear and important here. And we certainly, amongst those, will be water and transportation. But we were trying to think of where could we put some time and effort as staff where maybe we don't have quite as much expertise within our membership. And we came up with 3 priority areas. And I wanted to just quickly share those with all of you. Just to make it easier, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. Someone just kind of nod if they're seeing that. Okay, perfect. So these are the potential staff focus areas for 2022. The first is housing. There is a lot of expertise in our membership around housing, but we also just recognize that it's going to likely be an area where there's a lot of legislative attention in 2022. There's also possibly going to be a ballot initiative in 2022 called the Community Choice Initiative that would look to remove the state's ability to make laws around housing. Those who are in support are really interested in seeing zoning return to the local jurisdictions. And those who maybe might oppose this feel that it's important for the state to be able to make laws related to housing as we have a housing crisis. So this is something that we anticipate the East Bay Leadership Council being pretty engaged in and on. We are also really excited that a local Bay Area Assemblywoman is going to be the head of the Committee on Housing and Community Development, Assemblymember Wicks. And so knowing that, we want to make sure that we work very closely with her as an organization and really work on developing that relationship. We also know that she's just been very concentrated on the housing crisis and those 3 prongs that we often talk about in relation to the housing crisis. So want to make sure that we are concentrating on that relationship. We also know that a housing trust is coming to Contra Costa County, which is a huge development here locally. And we want to be sure that we're paying close attention to that and making sure that our members, all of you included, are aware of what that'll look like and how that develops here locally. It is also something that there's some concentration on in Alameda County, so it crosses those counties. The second thing that we wanted to concentrate on in 2022 is opportunity and talent development. And this is the task force where a lot of these issues would likely come. And so we're definitely looking for all of your feedback on this priority and in thinking through how we might better develop it in 2022. We know that there's going to be concentration on what are called sometimes clean jobs, energy transition jobs, green jobs. And knowing that last year we concentrated on the passing of the Green Empowerment Zone bill, we want to kind of see how that continues to develop and what coalition building might be created around that initiative. We're also really concerned about both the healthcare workforce and the early childhood workforce here locally, but also statewide. And so we're interested in really being supportive of legislation that tries to address that and working in partnership and coalition with local organizations that are trying to see that better addressed and also just better acknowledged, and thinking through training and workforce programs that might help to prepare for the workforce need that we know is coming in both of those sectors. The last one is elections. 2022 is going to be a year in which we concentrate and think a lot about the ballot measures, local and state elections, and hold and host candidate forums. So we know that'll be a priority for staff as there's just a lot of planning that goes into putting on things like candidate forums. And thank goodness we're very blessed to have Mark here who has a great ability to put on events like that digitally if that's how we need to do them. So I wanted to just make sure that all of you as members of the Opportunity Task Force are aware of some of the areas we're thinking about putting time and effort in 2022. Again, acknowledging they're not the only areas that we'll be putting effort, but also really just hoping to get some feedback from all of you. We only have about 2 minutes, so I'm not looking to get that feedback today, but hopefully at a meeting in January or February, we can revisit these and get all of your thoughts and feedback. And if in the meantime, you could concentrate on thinking through how your organization might want to be involved, and or sharing with us how you might already have some initiatives related to these 3 areas, I would greatly appreciate it. That was real quick, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of information about what we're thinking about as we go into 2022. Is there anyone who wanted to chime in or any kind of feedback anyone has immediately before we turn it over to Bob to end our meeting?
Yeah, Lindy, I'll be the chatty economic development county guy. On behalf of my colleague Jody London, I would draw everybody's attention back to what CCTA and MCE are doing around deploying electric vehicles. I really think we've got a competitive advantage in momentum, and what we have in this county. If we collectively could come together and advocate for that, I think there's some opportunity there. I also think that she earlier identified the Green Empowerment Zone, which you also identified on your list. That, while it's an unfunded approved zone, it has a lot of opportunity there. And you know, if we can ask Assemblyman Grayson to somehow request funding this fiscal year around to put monies into and maybe give it some oomph with, I don't know, a few other twists and turns, that could really be a benefit to Contra Costa County's communities and some of the emerging industries. So I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, but there's two nuggets of potential opportunity there.
Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate you kind of putting some concentration on both of those. Momentum is something we certainly talk about a lot at the Transportation Task Force, and I think we're definitely open to opportunities to continue to work with the county and advocacy around that. And I'm glad to know the Green Empowerment Zone is a concentration for all of you. And it sounds like it'd probably be a great topic for us to take up in early 2022 as a specific Opportunity Task Force meeting. So I'll definitely bring that to our leadership team. But with that, Bob, I think we're ready to hand it over to you to just sign us off.
Yeah, I just think I want to give everybody the benefit of time today. So we're going to end on time. Watch your emails for follow-up. So thank you to our speakers, Sam, Angela, Cassava, and Patience for jumping in. So thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the day and a good holiday season. Thanks, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
Thank you,
everyone.
Bob. Thank you, everyone.
Be safe.